Erica Payne is the founder of the Agenda Project, and Ziad Ramadan is the president of the board of directors of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Erica, you first, and this rhetoric out there right now, this apparently deranged guy went after the cab driver in New York. I'm not going to, mental illness is an impossible thing to figure out, but this guy obviously has heard things in the air. The atmospherics around him led him apparently to do this thing. What do you make of it? Attacking with a knife, reaching up through the screen, through the glass, and starting to carve on the guy's neck.
Right. I mean, we've really reached a point in this debate where it's just gone overboard, and there was a point at which people could have come together and reached a compromise, and maybe that was the right conversation to have. But at this point, these political leaders need to show a significant amount more leadership than they have shown to date in really taking hold of themselves and calming down their own rhetoric so that they can serve as good examples to the rest of us out there who are trying to make sense of a world where we really ask, all of us to live together in a way that's peaceful and in harmony, and they're not contributing to that.
What's the business that's really going on here? I'm thinking of Cider House Rules. What business are these people in who are raising hell? I want to go to Ziad on that. What business are people in really who are out raising hell about this site? A couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center. I don't know if it was 5 blocks away, it would have been the same thing. Fair enough, people have attitudes about this. We all have attitudes. But why are people out front raising hell about this? Why are is there something to be gained here, Ziad, by the screamers?
Really not. I think it's hate rhetoric. I think their minds have been poisoned by organizations such as Stop the Islamization of America. They have a guy who's pretty much their architect. His name is Robert Spencer. This guy used to write for revolutionary books. They're so far left and communist, and now he writes for a fascist right organization that calls for like the expulsion of Muslims, the attacking of Muslims, and so he's really like the Jim Jones of the modern era, but he's poisoning people's minds over the internet, and people are reacting to this, and he's falsifying information like this is a victory mosque. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll answer me. Is this a fundraising jag? Are people running for office? Is Dan Senor, for example, planning a political career in New York? I mean, I'm always looking at the political angle, I guess, and sometimes the financial angle. Why do people devote themselves every minute to appearing on television on an issue like this, which, let's face it, is a local issue in downtown New York? It has to do with the community down there, the business district down there, how it will affect how people get along down there. I swear a year from now, nobody's going to be talking about this. So who grabs the symbol?
Chris,
and why are they grabbing it?
Lazio has not spoken.
No, he's desperate.
I mean, he hasn't spoken about anything but this issue. Gingrich has recently come out and said something to the extent of, maybe we had it wrong, it wasn't terrorism we should be attacking, it's Islam that should be our enemy. I mean, those kinds of statements are just insane, and this is coming from somebody who was reprimanded as Speaker of the House. He is one of the worst political opportunists
that's ever lived, and that's saying something in this country. Let me get back to Erica. What's your belief? Why are people seeking to devote themselves 24/7 to this issue this last couple of weeks? They're out there practically building careers on this Andy Warhol experience some of them are having. Senor is one. He's not a bad guy, but what is he up to politically? Tell me he's not up to something.
Well,
Erica.
I mean, the real issue that I have with this entire thing that's happening is not what this whack doodle wants to do and that whack doodle wants to do, and any kind of individuals are going to have whatever opinion they want to have about this topic. The question is that when we have elected people who are supposed to serve as leaders to the country, and they are instead condoning or being silent in the face of this kind of nonsense, we really need to ask ourselves, there is not leadership from most politicians right now, and most of them are lacking in any sort of moral architecture that is going to get us to a better place in this country. And so we need to stop looking to politicians and push back on them and say, you are going to cease all of this on both sides of this argument, all of you, or we are going to make sure that none of you are in office anymore.
Well, let me go back to, Erica, let me stay with you for a second. It seems to me that people in broadcasting, I've been warned about this, learned about it over the years. You can say something on the air that somebody out there who's mentally unstable will act on. This guy in the New York cab going after that cab driver with this big knife because of something he's obviously heard on television, heard on cable. I don't think he reads the papers, but probably heard in the media. Don't these people that are rabble-rousing, and that's what they're doing, they're not exactly rabble-rousing the rabble, they're rousing the people who are unstable. table, apparently.
Yeah.
There's going to be trouble here, and the people who are behind the trouble are the ones making the noise, I think. Your thoughts?
And the people who are getting hurt are real people. I mean, this man who got hurt in the taxi drive 2 nights ago has 4 children. I think he's been driving a taxi cab for 20-some-odd years. He said in one of his messages that he's never felt insecure in the city before, and now he does. And, you know, there are 2 people in this exercise trying to pull us apart, and one of them is the terrorists who tried to pull us apart in the wake of what they did in 9/11, and the best way that they can win is for us to let them succeed in that division. And unfortunately, politicians can play right into that division, and they can be politically successful as a result of it.
Well, I have to say some of the greatest gentlemen I work with in the daytime throughout the day, Zihad, are a lot of the people who drive the cars that we've been able to use at NBC.
Right.
And they drive the cars for a car service, and I got to tell you, they educate me every time I get in the car. We have the longest conversations, and I hate to think that in this country where a lot of them really want to assimilate and become real parents and real Americans are going to feel that somebody doesn't like them because of their religion. Americans tend to like people who are religious. As a rule, we tend to, maybe we're not all religious, but we tend to like people to go to church. We tend to like people to go to synagogue because we think it says something about the way they organize their lives.
Right.
Right? Generally speaking.
Absolutely. You know,
and I wonder about this and how it's going to affect everything. Your last thought, Zihad.
You know, the building of mosques around the country is really a sign of the integration of the Muslim community in America. I mean, basically, as a Muslim community with hundreds or thousands of people, and they need a place to pray, just like the Catholics and the Lutherans and the Buddhists and the Taoists and the Jews, and they just want a place to pray and worship their Lord like everyone else. And it just seems like so much misinformation is coming down into these small communities, and people who don't have information are acting on this, and it's unfortunate.
But I mean, this is, Chris, if I could just jump in with one thing. We use the word tolerance constantly in this country as though that's a good quality. I have a Muslim woman who works in my office, and we had a lunch the other day at the beginning of Ramadan, and she told us all about Ramadan and what that was like, and we weren't tolerating her explanation of, you know, a cultural difference. We were embracing it and celebrating it, and that should be the place that we need to be as a country.
I think it's good to learn all the time. Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Zihad. Now to Pastor Terry Jones, who's planning to commemorate 9/11 by burning Korans. He joins us.